Welcome back to Sleepy Tides, where the night is calm and the stories are just eerie enough to follow you into your dreams. So settle in, find a comfortable spot, let the lights dim, and let your breathing slow. Tonight's tale is a quiet kind of frightening, one that begins in the daylight and ends long after dark. Close your eyes and listen. I was 7 the first time I saw him. Mom and I were at the mall, holding hands, and looking at the big fountain in the center. I remember wanting to throw a penny in, but she said we didn't have change. That's when I noticed him, standing on the upper level, leaning over the railing. He was old, but not the kind of old you see at the park feeding birds. His face looked like it had been carved from wood, all sharp and rough, and his eyes didn't blink. When I looked back a second later, he was gone. We went into a few more stores, and every now and then I thought I saw him again. Just a shape disappearing into a crowd, or someone turning away before I could get a good look. Mom's smile started getting smaller. By the time we left, she was holding my hand so tight it almost hurt. The ride home was long, 30 minutes on the highway. It was raining now, and I kept seeing the same black car in the mirror. Every time we switched lanes, it switched too. Mom didn't say much, but her eyes kept flicking to the mirror more than the road. We stopped for gas, hoping it would drive past us. Instead, it pulled across the street, headlights on, facing us. Just sitting there, watching. Mom called Dad and told him everything. But he said it was probably just a coincidence. Maybe she was imagining it. He told her to get home soon. When we pulled out, the black car followed again, all the way to our exit, all the way through the dark, winding roads to our house. But when we turned into the driveway, it just kept going. Mom grabbed the bags in one hand and me in the other. Rushing inside, we locked the door. Dad gave her a look like she was worrying too much. We had dinner, brushed our teeth, and it was time for bed. Before they turned out the light, I told them I was scared of the man from earlier. They checked my closet, under my bed. They told me I was safe. For a while, I believed them. But sometime after midnight, I woke up to a sound. A light, steady tapping on my window. At first, I thought it was the rain, but it wasn't. The rain was fast and loud. This was slower. I sat up and stared at the glass. The room was too dark to see anything. I tiptoed across the floor, my feet cold against the wood. When I got to the window, the rain streaked down in silver lines. I pressed my face close, but everything beyond was just shadows. I unlocked the latch and pushed the window open, just a little, so I could lean out and listen. That's when I heard it. "Do your parents know you're up this late, little girl?" The voice was right below me. Rough, old. I slammed the window shut so hard it rattled, screaming for my mom and dad. The tapping came back, faster this time, then pounding. "Let me in right this minute or things will get a lot worse." The door burst open and Dad was there, scooping me up in one arm while his other hand held his pistol. He handed me to Mom, yanked the window open, flashlight in hand. The man was already running, 30 feet away, his coat flapping behind him. "Never mess with my family, or I will hunt you down like an animal." The police came. They talked to Mom and Dad for a long time. An officer sat outside our house every night for a week. The man never came back. I never saw him again. I hope I never do. That was tonight's story. A reminder that sometimes the scariest things are the ones that could happen just outside your window. If your eyes are still open, let them close now. It's a quiet night. Laughter fills the room, Controllers click and buzz as they play games. But soon, the conversation turns to the old building down the street. A place wrapped in whispers and mystery. Join us now as we follow their cautious steps and listen close. For the shadows hold their own stories. The night had been easy and full of laughter. Matt's living room was a mess of empty chip bags, glowing controller lights, and the low hum of a video game menu screen. Jason was leaning back in the recliner, grinning at something Doug had just said. Michael sat cross-legged on the carpet, trying to get his controller to sync, the flicker of the TV making shadows dance across the walls. It was one of those nights that felt sealed away from the rest of the world. The clock edging toward midnight, but nobody in a hurry to leave, somewhere between a round of trash talk and another game loading. The conversation shifted. The old apartment building. It wasn't much to look at from the street. Just a 3-story brick box with boarded windows and a roof line that sagged in the middle. But for years, everyone in the neighborhood had avoided it. Stories had grown around the place, strange noises, people disappearing for a night and refusing to talk about it afterward. Matt laughed it off at first, tossing the controller onto the couch. It's just an old building. What's the worst that could happen? Doug shook his head. You've heard the stories. People say that's where he used to take them. Jason raised an eyebrow. Who? Doug's voice lowered, as if saying it too loud might wake something up. The Oak Street Strangler. For a moment, the room seemed a little quieter. Michael scoffed, but it didn't sound convincing. That was years ago. He's dead, or in prison, or whatever, right? Doug didn't answer. The idea hung there, heavy and thrilling, by the time someone joked about going to see it for themselves. The challenge had been laid out. It took another 10 minutes of back and forth before anyone stood up. But soon enough, the boys were pulling on hoodies, checking the batteries in their flashlights, and sliding pocket knives into their back pockets. The night air felt colder than it had an hour ago. Streetlights hummed as they walked past, their shadows stretching long across the cracked sidewalk. The old apartment building waited at the end of the block, black against the faint silver glow of the moon. They stopped at the edge of the cracked parking lot. The place looked worse up close. Every window on the first floor was boarded, and scraps of old flyers clung to the walls in the corners, their words washed away by rain. The front doors were chained shut, the glass long since smashed out. Guess we're going around, Matt whispered, even though there wasn't a soul in sight. The group moved as one along the side of the building, their flashlights sweeping over bricks, graffiti, and warped drain pipes. Jason's beam caught the faded outline of a handprint smeared on the wall. That's not creepy at all, he muttered. They found a side entrance where the wood over one window had been pried loose. After you, Doug said to Michael, who snorted but climbed in first. The inside air felt thick, stale, as if it had been sitting still for decades. Their footsteps echoed across a wide, dark hallway. Water dripped somewhere in the distance. The ceiling was low, pipes and wires hanging loose like cobwebs. Man, it smells in here, Jason whispered. Yeah, Doug replied, his voice tight, like metal. They passed what looked like a small lobby, paint peeling from the walls, a desk on its side, drawers gutted. Matt shone his light toward a door with its hinges rusted and bent. Beyond it, a stairwell disappeared into black. Up or down? Michael asked. Down, Matt said without hesitation. Basements are where the creepy stuff happens. Doug groaned. Why is that supposed to make me want to go first? The stairs groaned under their weight as they descended, The air grew colder, and that metallic smell seemed sharper now, almost bitter. At the bottom, the light revealed a long corridor lined with storage doors, each one numbered in faded paint. A few stood open, showing nothing but dust and broken shelves. But halfway down, they saw it. One door newer than the rest. Fresh wood, a heavy padlock. Nobody spoke. Matt stepped forward, running his fingers along the frame. It wasn't painted. No dust had settled on it. Jason's flashlight wavered. Why's it? Newer than everything else. Somewhere beyond the door, something scraped against the floor. The boys froze. Every sound in the basement suddenly too loud. The hum of their own breathing, the faint tick of water dripping somewhere far off. Matt's hand dropped from the door, but his eyes stayed fixed on it, as if it might move on its own. Doug swallowed hard. That wasn't the building settling, he whispered. His voice was almost swallowed by the heavy quiet. From behind the fresh wood, the scrape came again, slower this time, deliberate, like something being dragged across concrete. Jason's knuckles tightened around his flashlight. We should just go, he said, though his feet didn't move. The beam of light trembled in his grip, painting warped shadows over the padlock. Michael stepped closer instead, drawn in like the quiet was pulling him. Matt glanced at each of them, his voice barely a breath. If we don't look now, we'll never stop wondering. Doug let out a shaky laugh and tried to steady his tone. Come on, if it is him, then we can take him down. We'd be heroes, might even save somebody. It didn't sound as convincing out loud, but it was enough to make Matt reach into his pocket, thumb brushing the edge of his small folding knife. The scraping had stopped. Matt knelt down and tugged at the padlock. It resisted at first, rusted tight, but with a few determined twists, it popped free and clattered to the floor. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow room barely lit by a single, flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling. The air inside smelled sharp, a mix of cold metal and something else. Something faintly sweet and sour, like old blood. Their flashlights sliced through the darkness, revealing walls covered in peeling wallpaper and shelves crowded with dusty jars, faded photographs pinned up with rusty nails, and scattered papers on the far wall. A large corkboard was filled with maps, newspaper clippings, and hand-drawn diagrams. Strings connected points in a chaotic pattern, like the mind of someone obsessed with a puzzle no one else could solve. Doug swallowed hard, eyes flicking nervously to the shadows. This has to be it, he whispered. The place he hid. Michael stepped forward, brushing a thick layer of dust off a journal lying on the floor. The pages inside were filled with shaky handwriting, rambling notes and dates that didn't line up with anything they recognized. One phrase repeated again and again, almost like a mantra. They'll never leave, not if I don't let them. The quiet returned, but it was different now, heavier, waiting. The silence pressed against their skin like a cold breath. Suddenly, a faint shuffle echoed down the dark hallway beyond the room. Their flashlights flickered as a figure stepped into the dim light, tall, gaunt, with eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the gloom. His mouth opened, and a rough, hoarse voice hollered, "You shouldn't be here." The boys stumbled back, hearts pounding. Matt grabbed Jason's arm. "Run!" The figure's footsteps thundered behind them, uneven and fast. The air was thick with the smell of damp concrete and something sharper, something metallic. Scraps of old debris crunched beneath their feet as they burst back down the corridor, the sound of the man's angry shouts chasing them like a dark tide. Flashlights bobbed wildly, beams crossing the walls covered in grime and peeling paint. The boys' breaths came in sharp gasps, each footfall pounding with fear and adrenaline. Around a corner, Doug slipped, catching himself just before a fall. "Keep moving," Michael yelled. Behind them, the man's voice rose in fury, a desperate growl cutting through the silence. The boys burst through the stairwell and scrambled up the steps, the sound of the chase fading as they spilled out into the night air. They didn't stop running until the building was far behind them, swallowed by shadows and silence. Only then did their racing hearts slow enough to hear each other's breaths. "We made it," Matt said, voice trembling. "We're alive." But none of them could shake the feeling that something had followed them, something that wouldn't forget their faces so easily. The boys didn't stop running until the old apartment building was swallowed by the night behind them, its dark silhouette fading into the quiet streets. Their breaths were heavy, hearts still pounding. But the open air felt safe, like a shield against whatever lurked inside those crumbling walls. When they finally reached Matt's house, hands trembling, they hurried inside and slammed the door shut. Locks clicked into place, and the blinds were drawn tight against the dark. The familiar glow of the living room felt like a warm hug, a barrier between them and the shadows they'd left behind. They sank onto the couch, flicking on the TV. The soft hum of a late-night show filled the room, dull and comforting. Matt stretched out, eyes heavy. Jason rested his head back with a shaky laugh. Doug rubbed his hands over his face. Michael's fingers absently traced the rim of his glass. Slowly, the adrenaline faded. The tension loosened its grip. One by one, the boys' eyes grew heavy, lids fluttering, as the calm glow of the screen blurred into soft dreams. Outside, the night continued quietly, the city breathing gently, the world turning toward morning. And inside that safe little house, the boys finally found rest. Breathe in and out, and listen closely. Because tonight, you'll be seeing through the eyes of someone who almost didn't survive. This is the man at the window. It was just past 2:15 when I woke up. Not groggy, not tired, just alert. Like something had jolted me out of a dream I couldn't remember. The bedroom was still. No breeze, no creaks, no cars on the street below. And then I saw him from my second-floor window across the narrow street. A man was standing in the backyard of the old Patterson house. He wasn't moving, just standing there, not facing the house. He was turned toward the woods, like he was listening to something only he could hear. I should have looked away, should have rolled over. But I didn't, because a light flicked on in the Patterson kitchen, and the man moved. He didn't walk, he glided, fast, like he already knew every inch of that yard. He disappeared into the shadows. I grabbed my phone, no signal. Typical. Service here cuts out like a bad memory. But I was wide awake now, and I knew something was wrong. I ran down the stairs, barefoot, adrenaline humming, crossed the street, slipped into the side yard. The back door was ajar. A breeze made it creak once, like it was inviting me in. Inside, the kitchen smelled like cinnamon and dust. Above me, a thump. Another. Muffled voice. I didn't think. I moved. The stairs groaned beneath me. At the end of the hall, a bedroom door stood open. A woman, late 20s, was fighting him. She kicked and clawed, wild-eyed. The man was tall, masked, his grip unshakable. I charged. My shoulders slammed into his ribs. He stumbled. She broke free, screamed, then pain. Something heavy struck my skull. The floor tilted. The world vanished. Darkness, oil. My limbs were cramped, knees folded tight. And then I heard her breathing. "We're in the trunk," she whispered. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer, but I heard her nod. The car rumbled beneath us, asphalt, then gravel. Back roads, maybe. We were being taken. No idea how far from town. Time passed slow, thick, then brakes. The engine cut. Driver's door opened. Footsteps on gravel. Silence. She reached for my hand. I squeezed it. "Be ready." The key turned in the lock. The hatch clicked. Light spilled in. And there he was. The mask. I lunged, dragged him down. He hit the ground hard. She scrambled out, screamed, kicked. He tried to rise. I hit him again and again. Blood soaked the dirt. We didn't wait. We ran. The woods swallowed us. Branches clawed at our skin. Thorns tore at our legs. But we didn't stop. An owl called somewhere. Then silence again. The kind that presses on your chest. We found a road. Just wet pavement and fog. A car passed, then another. We stepped into the beams, bloody, shaking. An older couple pulled over, wide-eyed, silent. They drove us straight to the police. We told them everything. The mask, the trunk, the man in the yard. They searched. Nothing. The car, gone. No prints. No blood. No sign he was ever there. Years have passed. The woman, Elise, moved. New name, new life. She's married now. 2 kids. We talk sometimes, not often. She still looks over her shoulder. So do I. Sometimes I dream of the trunk. Other nights, the man at the window. And sometimes I wake up not from fear, but because I hear something. A creak near the back door. A breath by the glass. They never caught him. No trace. No rumors. Just silence. But I remember his hands. Cold. His eyes behind the mask. Empty. Like something had taken him long before he ever took us. And now, when the night is still, I wonder, is he watching someone else? Waiting for the next window light to flicker on? You've been listening to The Man at the Window, an original bedtime horror story from Sleepy Tides. If you're still with us, safe and sound, may your dreams be gentler than tonight's tale. And if you wake up in the middle of the night, just don't look out the window. Good night.